You text her good morning, and she takes 4 hours to send back a thumbs up emoji. You pour your heart out in a 3-paragraph message about your feelings, and she responds with K. But remember that time you ignored her for 2 days because you were genuinely busy? She blew up your phone with 17 messages, sent you memes, asked if you were okay, and suddenly remembered that funny story she forgot to tell you last week. This isn't a glitch in the Matrix. This is female psychology operating exactly as designed. The moment you become fully available, you become fully worthless. Not because women are evil or calculating, but because human beings are wired to value what requires effort to obtain. And right now, you're serving yourself up like a free buffet at 2 a.m., wondering why she's not hungry anymore. Here's the uncomfortable truth that'll reorganize your entire reality. Women are only nice when you don't talk to them much. That distance you're terrified to create, that's the exact space where her interest lives. The silence you think will kill the connection, that's where her imagination starts working overtime, filling in the gaps with fantasies about what you're doing, who you're with, why you're not desperately seeking her validation like every other guy in her DMs. Watch what happens when you pull back. Suddenly she remembers how funny you are. Suddenly she misses your voice. Suddenly you're not the boring guy who's always available. You're the mystery she needs to solve. You become a challenge again, and women are biologically programmed to be fascinated by challenges, not by lapdogs who respond in 0.3 seconds to every text. The math is brutal but simple. The more you chase, the faster she runs. The more you message, the less she responds. The more you care, the less she does. You're not playing hard to get. You're demonstrating that your world doesn't revolve around her validation. And that, brother, is the most attractive thing you can possibly communicate without saying a single word. Let me show you exactly what's happening in her mind when you're always available. She wakes up knowing you'll text. She goes through her day certain you'll respond instantly. She makes plans knowing you'll cancel yours to accommodate hers. There's no anticipation, no uncertainty, no emotional spike when your name appears on her screen. You've become as exciting as a utility bill. Predictable, necessary maybe, but completely uninspiring. Every time you double text her, you lose. Every time you explain yourself when she didn't ask, you shrink. Every time you send that just checking in message, you might as well be holding up a neon sign that says, I have absolutely nothing else going on in my life. You're not being caring. You're being a value vampire, sucking the attraction out of the relationship one desperate message at a time. Think about it. When's the last time you saw a CEO spam someone with follow-ups? When's the last time a man with real purpose had time to analyze why she used a period instead of an exclamation point? Never. Because men who are building something don't have time to decode emoji patterns like they're ancient hieroglyphics. But here you are, crafting your 5th draft of a text about weekend plans, wondering if you should add a smiley face to seem less aggressive. Your constant availability is screaming insecurity louder than any words could. That immediate response time, it tells her you were sitting there waiting, phone in hand, praying for her validation. That good morning text every single day at 7 a.m. It tells her she's your first thought, not your purpose, not your mission, not your goals, her. And nothing dries up attraction faster than a man whose entire emotional state depends on her text notifications. She's not responding slower because she's busy. She's responding slower because you've trained her that you'll always be there, like a loyal golden retriever waiting by the door. Where's the excitement in that? Where's the tension? Where's the wondering if you're actually interested, or if you've got other options? You've eliminated all mystery, all challenge, all intrigue, and replaced it with the relationship equivalent of elevator music. Always there, completely predictable, entirely forgettable. Here's a truth bomb that'll sting. Your paragraph-long messages are actually repelling her. Each word after the first sentence decreases her attraction exponentially. While you're pouring out your thoughts like a diary entry, she's showing her friends and laughing. Not because she's cruel, but because your over-communication screams desperation louder than a fire alarm. Men with options don't have time to write novels. They communicate in efficient bursts because their time has actual value. Status isn't about your bank account or your car. It's about what your behavior signals to her primitive brain. When you're blowing up her phone, you're advertising that she's the best you can do. When you're instantly available every time she calls, you're announcing that nobody else wants your time. When you drop everything for her, you're confirming that nothing you were doing was actually important. You're not being romantic. you're being a walking billboard for low status. Women don't consciously think, he texted back in 30 seconds, therefore he must be a loser. But their attraction system processes it exactly that way. Her subconscious is running calculations. Would a man with options behave like this? Would a man with important things happening drop everything to send me paragraphs about his day? Would a man who other women want be this desperately available? The answer is screaming no, and her interest is evaporating accordingly. Watch how she treats the guy who takes 3 days to respond versus you with your instant replies. She's crafting careful messages to him, checking her phone obsessively, analysing his every word. Meanwhile, you're getting half-hearted responses while she's on the toilet because you've become background noise in her life. The difference isn't that he's better than you, it's that his behaviour signals higher status, and status is the language her attraction speaks fluently. Social proof isn't just about being seen with other people, it's about behaving like someone who has other people. When you don't immediately respond, her mind fills in the blanks. He must be with someone, he must be doing something important, other people must want his attention, he must have a life. These assumptions, whether true or not, create a version of you that's infinitely more attractive than the reality of you waiting by your phone like a teenager with his first crush. The bitter pill? She's not attracted to you. She's attracted to her perception of you. And every desperate message, every immediate response, every needy behaviour is editing that perception downward. You're literally texting yourself out of her league one, "Hey beautiful, thinking of you," at a time. Your actual value hasn't changed, but your perceived value is in free fall because you're acting like someone nobody else wants. A high-value man's attention is expensive, and you're giving yours away like free samples at Costco. She doesn't have to work for it, earn it, or even appreciate it because she knows it'll be there tomorrow, and the next day, and every day after that until she gets bored enough to block you. You've made yourself as challenging to obtain as air, always available, completely free, and only noticed when it's gone. Real status feels like a closed door that might open if you're interesting enough. It feels like a maybe, not a guarantee. It feels like something you could lose if you don't bring your best. But you're a door that's not just open, it's been ripped off its hinges. There's no mystery about whether you'll respond, no question about whether you're interested, no doubt about whether she could have you. The chase is dead because you've already been caught, mounted on her wall like a trophy she didn't even have to hunt for. Think about the men she actually chases. They don't send her good morning texts because their mornings are already full. They don't immediately respond because they're in meetings at the gym, building something that matters more than her mood swings. They don't explain their absence because they don't owe her an explanation. Their time feels valuable because it is valuable, and she knows she's competing for it with things and people that might be more important than her. This is why she's obsessed with the guy who seems just out of reach while treating you like furniture. His selective communication creates scarcity. His delayed responses create anticipation. His limited availability creates competition anxiety. Every interaction with him feels earned, special, significant. Meanwhile, your constant presence has made you invisible, always there, like background music nobody actually listens to. You want to know what hard to access really looks like? It's having standards for when and how you communicate. It's not responding during your work hours because your work actually matters. It's not being available for random 2 a.m. emotional dumps because your sleep is non-negotiable. It's having blocks of time where you're completely unreachable because you're doing things that don't involve staring at her name on a screen. You're not playing games. You're living like someone whose time has actual value. In every other area of your life, more effort equals better results. Work harder at the gym, get stronger. Study more, get smarter. Practice more, get better. But with women, the harder you try, the faster you fail. The more energy you invest, the less she wants you. You're operating on masculine logic in a feminine ecosystem, wondering why the rules you've lived by your entire life suddenly work in reverse. This breaks your brain because it violates everything you've been taught about success. Your father told you nothing worth having comes easy. Your coach said winners never quit. Your boss rewards extra effort. But here you are, writing thoughtful messages that showcase your emotional intelligence, planning creative dates that prove you're different, remembering every detail she's ever mentioned, and she's more interested in the guy who forgot her birthday and texts her, "You up?" at midnight. The paradox is this: your effort signals low value because high-value men don't need to try that hard. When you're crafting the perfect message for 20 minutes, she intuitively knows that a man with options wouldn't invest that much energy. When you're planning elaborate dates to impress her, she senses that you're overcompensating for something. When you're remembering every tiny detail about her life, she realizes you're studying her like an exam because you're terrified of failing. Watch what happens when you cut your effort by 80%. Suddenly, she's working to keep the conversation going. Suddenly, she's suggesting dates. Suddenly, she's remembering things about you. Not because she changed, but because the dynamic flipped. When you stopped auditioning for her approval, she started auditioning for yours. When you stopped chasing, she started pursuing. When you stopped trying to earn her, she started trying to keep you. The most attractive thing you can do is make your interaction with her look effortless. Like you're not thinking about it. Like you're not strategizing. Like she's just one of many pleasant but non-essential parts of your life. The moment she senses you're putting in work, she knows she's already won, and the game becomes boring. But when your minimal effort creates maximum results, that's when she realizes she might be dealing with someone actually valuable, someone who doesn't need to try because he knows his worth isn't determined by her response time. But she's different. No, she's not. But we have something special. No, you don't. But she told me she hates games and wants consistent communication. Brother, she tells every guy that, right before she loses interest in the ones who actually deliver it. This rule doesn't care about her PhD, her childhood trauma, her spiritual awakening, or her claims about being not like other girls. Biology doesn't give a damn about her biography. The church girl who quotes scripture. She's ignoring the nice Christian guy who texts her Bible verses while fantasizing about the mysterious man who showed up once and disappeared. The feminist who preaches about emotional availability. She's friend-zoning the sensitive guy who validates her feelings while chasing the dude who barely knows her last name. The CEO who says she wants an equal partner. She's bored with the supportive man who respects her schedule, while obsessed with the guy who makes her wait. You think culture and upbringing override millions of years of evolution? You think her progressive values defeated her primal wiring? You think because she says she wants something different, her attraction system got the memo? This is like thinking you can negotiate with gravity because you don't believe in physics. The rule applies whether she grew up in Manhattan or Montana, whether she drives a Tesla or takes the bus, whether she has daddy issues or perfect parents. I know what you're thinking. What about my grandmother who was married for 50 years? Different era, different dynamics. Your grandfather didn't have to compete with her phone buzzing every 30 seconds with validation from strangers. He didn't have to maintain mystery in a world where she can track his location, see his active status, and know when he read her message. He lived in a time when scarcity was built into the system, not something you had to artificially create. Here's the brutal truth. Every woman who's ever lost interest in you followed this exact pattern. The teacher, the lawyer, the bartender, the artist. Different faces, same psychology. They all responded to distance with desire and availability with apathy. They all valued what was hard to get and devalued what was handed to them. They all confused your consistency with clinginess and your effort with desperation. Not because they were mean or manipulative, but because this is how attraction actually works, not how we wish it worked. Status comes in many forms, each one a different key to the same lock. Your looks? That's visual status. The immediate impression that you take care of yourself better than the soft-bodied masses scrolling through her DMs. Money? That's resource status, proving you can handle reality better than the broke philosophers explaining why capitalism is evil from their mother's basement. But here's what you're missing. The most powerful forms of status are the ones you're destroying every time you triple text her. Preselection by other women is the nuclear weapon of status. When she knows other women want you, her competitive instincts activate like a hunter spotting prey. But you're advertising that she's your only option by how desperately you cling to her attention. A man with 3 other women texting him doesn't panic when one doesn't respond. He doesn't write novels explaining himself. He doesn't have time for that. He's too busy managing abundance, your follower count, your social circle, your network. These are all forms of modern status that her brain processes instantly. But the highest form of status isn't what you have, it's how you behave. Confidence isn't saying, "I'm confident in your bio." It's taking 3 days to respond because you genuinely forgot. Charisma isn't crafting the perfect message. It's making her laugh with 4 words while other guys send Shakespeare. The tragedy is you probably have status in some area of your life, but you neutralize it the moment you open your mouth. Maybe you're killing it at work, but she doesn't see that when you're begging for her attention like an entry-level intern. Maybe you're respected in your field, but she doesn't feel that when you're explaining yourself like you're on trial. Maybe women at the gym check you out, but she doesn't know that when you're acting like she's the last woman on earth. You're rich in status, but spending it like a lottery winner who'll be broke in 6 months. She's bored because you've become predictable as a sitcom rerun. She knows you'll text good morning. She knows you'll ask about her day. She knows you'll be available Friday night, Saturday night, and every night until the sun burns out. You've eliminated all uncertainty, all surprise, all emotional range from the relationship. You're not a man anymore. You're a comfort blanket that's always there, always warm, always exactly the same. Boredom isn't about not doing enough. It's about being too accessible for whatever she wants to do. You're like a streaming service with one movie that plays on repeat. Sure, it might be a good movie, but when she can watch it any time, when it's always there, when there's no chance it might be unavailable, it becomes a background noise. She doesn't even see you anymore because you've trained her that you're permanent furniture in her life. Think about what originally attracted her. It wasn't your availability, it was the excitement of not knowing if you'd text back, the thrill of competing for your attention, the challenge of figuring you out, the mystery of what you were thinking. But you killed all of that with your constant presence. You murdered the attraction with kindness, suffocated the spark with security, and replaced sexual tension with the erotic energy of a weather report. Women don't get bored because you're boring. They get bored because there's nothing left to wonder about. You've answered every question before she could ask it. You've removed every obstacle before she could overcome it. You've solved every mystery before she could investigate it. She's playing a video game where she already knows every level, every boss, every ending. Where's the fun in that? Where's the dopamine hit of uncertainty? Where's the addictive cycle of tension and release? Your excessive availability turned you into emotional fast food. Always accessible, never satisfying, forgotten the moment it's consumed. High-value men are like a reservation-only restaurant. Sometimes you can't get in, sometimes you have to wait, sometimes you have to earn your place. But when you finally get that table, it feels special, valuable, worth the effort. You're the 24-hour drive-through, and nobody posts Instagram photos of their McDonald's order at 3 a.m. Mystery isn't about being secretive, it's about being incomplete in her mind. When you tell her everything about your day, your thoughts, your plans, your feelings, you become a finished book she's already read. But when she doesn't know where you were last night, when you don't explain that inside joke with your friend, when you mention something interesting then change the subject, her brain goes into overdrive trying to fill in the blanks. And the story she creates is always more attractive than your reality of binge-watching Netflix in your underwear. Scarcity hits her nervous system, like cocaine hits a junkie's brain. When your attention becomes rare, it becomes valuable. When your time becomes limited, it becomes precious. When your emotional energy becomes selective, it becomes intoxicating. You know why she screenshots messages from the guy who barely texts her, but deletes paragraphs from you? Because scarcity creates meaning. His 5 words carry more weight than your 500 because they're harder to get. The psychological trigger you're missing is intermittent reinforcement, the same principle that makes gambling addictive. When she doesn't know if you'll respond in 5 minutes or 5 hours, every notification becomes a potential jackpot. When she can't predict if you'll be warm or distant, every interaction becomes a thrilling gamble. But you're a slot machine that pays out every single time. No risk, no excitement, no addiction. Just boring, predictable rewards that stop triggering dopamine after the third pull. Selective communication creates what psychologists call cognitive investment. The more she has to work to understand you, the more valuable you become in her mind. It's the IKEA effect. People value things more when they have to put effort into them. But you come fully assembled with detailed instructions. There's no work required, no effort needed, no investment necessary. She didn't have to earn you, build you, or figure you out. You just showed up, complete and desperate like furniture nobody ordered. Watch how her emotional system responds to uncertainty versus security. When you're mysterious, her anxiety spikes. But it's the good kind, the exciting kind, the kind that feels like being alive. When you're scarce, her focus narrows to you like a laser. When you're selective, every piece of attention feels like winning a prize. These aren't conscious choices she's making, they're involuntary responses programmed into her hardware. You can fight against biology with your logic and fairness and consistency, but biology doesn't give a shit about your good intentions. Here's the revelation that should tattoo itself on your brain. You don't need to be rich, famous, or look like a Greek god to trigger massive attraction. You just need to stop being so fucking available. The average guy who understands strategic communication beats the millionaire who texts like a desperate teenager. The regular dude who creates mystery beats the model who gives away all his attention for free. This isn't cope, this is psychology, and it's the only game where the playing field is actually level. You're sitting there thinking you need a Lamborghini when all you need is the discipline to put your phone down. You think you need a six-pack when all you need is the 6 hours between your responses. You think you need to be extraordinary when all you need is to make your ordinary attention feel extraordinary by making it scarce. The tools for attraction are free, simple, and available to every man reading this, but most of you won't use them because they require something harder than money or muscle: self-control. The strategic man understands that his communication pattern is his status signature. Every delayed response adds perceived value. Every declined invitation suggests other options. Every boundary enforced implies self-respect. You're not lying or manipulating, you're simply behaving like someone whose time matters. And when you behave like someone whose time matters, she starts believing it too. That's not fake it till you make it. That's becoming it through your actions. This is your permission slip to stop trying so hard, to stop crafting perfect messages, to stop being perpetually available, to stop explaining yourself, to stop chasing. The average man's superpower isn't what he has, it's what he withholds. Your restraint becomes her obsession. Your silence becomes her anxiety. Your absence becomes her focus. You don't need to be special, you just need to make your attention special by not giving it away like candy on Halloween. The path forward is stupidly simple. Become harder to reach than you are to forget. Let her wonder where you are instead of always knowing. Let her earn your responses instead of expecting them. Let her chase the mystery instead of taking you for granted. You don't need a transformation, you need a behavioral adjustment. You don't need more value. You need to stop advertising your desperation. You don't need to be exceptional. You need to be exceptionally disciplined about your availability. The power was always yours. You just kept giving it away with every immediate response, every lengthy explanation, every desperate attempt to maintain constant contact. But now you know better. Now you understand that the space between messages is where attraction lives. That silence is where her interest grows. That absence is where your value multiplies. You're not playing games, you're finally playing to win. And for the first time in your life, you don't need anything except the wisdom to do less, say less, and be there less. That's not just good news for average men, that's the cheat code to the entire game.